afternoon, and welcome back to Sportszone. I am David Castillo, your host, and I am joined by the very talented Kevin Pacheco and Brandon Brown. Now, the surging Cardinals came into Arlington to face the struggling and depleted Cowboys. Boys, let's give a little talk about how badly it went, and especially, what did Andy Dalton do for the Cowboys? I'll start with you, Brandon.
The answer is more, what didn't Andrew Dalton do for the Cowboys? Which is a lot, because he threw 2 interceptions, he threw 1 touchdown, and you can't completely blame him because that O-line was banged up badly. They were missing all but one of their starters, I believe. Still, he wasn't doing much more than throwing 10-yard slants.
Yeah, no, I agree. But it's hard to overcome 2 early fumbles from Zeke. I want to go to you, Kevin. What do you think kind of shaped the game and the way it went following those fumbles?
Yeah, like the first quarter, everything was looking well. The offense wasn't putting up any points, but the defense was making stops. And once those fumbles started happening, Cardinals offense started putting points. And then Kyler Murray just started looking like he was in Allen High School all over again and just running all over teams. Yeah, after those fumbles, the turnovers, interceptions, all the points just started racking up for the Cardinals. And as always, the Cowboys are falling behind.
No, I agree. Watching that first quarter, the defense was playing in sync. They looked in rhythm, and then the offense just kind of puttered that away. Definitely not easy as an offensive player or a defensive player to get that defense back rolling after those fumbles. But I want to do a little buy or sell with you guys. I want to say, buy or sell, do we see Zeke still as a top 5 running back? Kevin.
If he holds on to the ball, he can still be, he led the NFL twice in rushing, so all he has to do is get rid of those fumbles. But this season, I don't see it happening.
You know what, I want to fight with you on that, especially with Derrick Henry being someone was drafted in the second day and is now showing that he is maybe, I'm not going to be the one who says it, but he may be better than Zeke lately. Brandon, what do you think is the best option for them? Do you think they need to go ahead and give Pollard more chances, or do they just need to give Zeke a chance to get more comfortable?
I think if they go with more of a 2 running back system, that overall it will be more productive for him, because you saw how Tony Pollard did, with those carries, only 31 yards, but he still looked like he could help carry the load and help carry some of the burden off of Zeke's load a bit. So definitely I think they should go with the 2 running back system for this season, because at this point, why not? What have they got to lose?
Yeah, and honestly, when I was watching that game as well, when I saw Tony Pollard run, he looked pretty good, and I thought they should have kept Zeke on the sideline, kind of to teach him a lesson for fumbling. But putting him back into the game, it's just like, oh, nothing really happened to me. I just lost a couple of snaps.
Well, they did take him out for, like you said, a couple of snaps, and I think that did help Pollard kind of get in rhythm. He did end up finishing with 10 carries for 31 yards. So he did show a different aspect to the team that we've kind of lacked. Another buy or sell question. I'm going to go to you, Brandon. Do you buy or sell the Dallas Cowboys making the playoffs with Andy Dalton as the quarterback?
I might say buy, only because the NFC East this season is just awful. They're 2-4 and in first place. And honestly, they might try to trade for another quarterback. I don't know, but with Andy Dalton or without, they're probably just going to make it by default.
As a fan, it's terrible to hear. We're a part of the NFC least, and it shows, and we might just limp into the playoffs to get murdered. So it's disheartening. I wanted to go again to you, Kevin. Do you buy or sell Coach McCarthy being with the team if they don't make the playoffs this year?
The team's offense has scored a couple points, especially when they had Prescott, and you can see how much Prescott meant for the team. As soon as they lost him, the team's just terrible. They put up close games with Prescott. He was putting up the points. You can't blame McCarthy for the injuries that have happened or the turnovers. He's not the one fumbling the ball. He's not the one blowing coverages. So I think McCarthy is doing just fine. The players need to play better.
Okay, I just want to go ahead and throw this out there because we've glossed over how terrible the defense has been. They have allowed 14 passing touchdowns, 10 rushing touchdowns in the first 6 games. That hasn't happened since 2005 when Mike Nolan was the coach of the 49ers. I don't know. You tell me if there's something that might be a coincidence. That's just my shot in the dark. But I want to thank you both for joining us. Next, we're going to be talking the UNT football team and seeing how they may bounce back from their last week loss. And welcome back. UNT was able to go to Middle Tennessee and get a victory. Now, it did come at the cost of our starting quarterback having to be sat, but now we got the very awesome Jocelyn Lassiter and Terrence Williams to discuss what just happened this past Saturday. I want to go to you, Jocelyn. What do you want to go ahead and give us a little bit of a highlight rundown from what you were able to see this weekend?
Well, I think it started off kind of rough with Austin Ani. We've seen him in previous games be able to go out there and actually start for the Mean Green football. And he actually started really good in previous game, but this one was a little bit off. It's like he was kind of off his game with 3 turnovers and 2 interceptions. I mean, that's the reason why he was sat out going into second quarter, 21-7. Then we bring in Jason Bean, who actually I feel like he had like a moment with himself, like, oh, I know what I have to do to go out there and be able to, basically turn this game around. And he was the game changer indeed, especially with him going in and being able to pass on to Simpson and also Darden. I mean, what can you say? This looked like a different team once Jason Bean got onto the field. So.
Yeah, no, look, I have been now for 2 weeks saying there's no way Austin Aune gives this starting quarterback job up, and then here in the first quarter he throws those 2 picks. Second quarter they have to replace him, and Bean comes in and does just a miraculous job with the team. I want to go to you, Terrence. Where do you think the Mr. Bean show goes from here?
It's straight to the top from here. I'm honestly gonna say he has that starting spot in my opinion, because once he rushed for over 169 yards with 3 rushing touchdowns just by himself, and also set a school record with the rushing yards, he solidified that spot. Austin did his spot. He did his part on the offense, but unfortunately, the turnovers is what cost him that spot in that game.
Yeah, no, look, we don't want to knock on Austin Aune because he's been able to keep the offense at UNT kind of humming.
Yeah.
We're still 6th in the FBS as far as offensive yards per game, so we want to go ahead and give him credit where it was. But Bean has taken over. Like I said, it's the Mr. Bean show at this point. We are. Would be a criminal to not talk about Darden. I know, Jocelyn, you just mentioned it. He leads the league, the FBS, in receptions, touchdowns, and yards. Jocelyn, what do you have a little bit to talk about his impact on the team?
Well, I think he is probably one of the team leaders. He's a senior. He actually had 10 catches for 210 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he was out there beasting. It's something that I feel like, have all been wanting to see out of the Mean Green football. This particular game could be a game changer in which can turn around and change the momentum of the Mean Green football going forward. And I think with Darden, you also have Deontay Simpson, who's a sophomore. He still has time for growth. I mean, what can you say? Like, he knows that this is his senior year, and they're trying to get far because they're having they did start off kind of rocky and a little shaky, and we didn't know where the season was going to go, especially with the quarterback challenges that we've been having. But I think with Jason Bean, I think it's bound to go to the top, like Terrence said.
Yeah, look, this is probably the most optimistic we've had any analyst talking about UNT football, and it's after Bean kind of just goes off. You mentioned he had 169 yards with 3 rushing touchdowns. He is also one of the leading rushers as a quarterback in the FBS, so that's great. Darden, again, is going to be one of the probably highest rated or highest drafted player UNT has ever had. What about Darden do you see going forward with UNT, Terrence?
They're obviously going to lean on him a lot more and Bean, because if you use Bean in the offense and let him run and use his legs, and then also let him be able to throw the ball to Darden, I honestly don't know what else they're going to be able to do. They're going to keep that top spot in the FBS, but Darden is going to be the key significant figure around this offense.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to see it. And again, he will get drafted. I don't think anyone here is going to doubt that. He's probably get drafted 3rd, 4th round. We'll see what happens. But I want to go ahead and talk about
Dang.
Second round pick.
We're going up against UTEP next week. I want to get a quick answer, win or loss, or in 2 weeks. Jocelyn, win or loss?
Maybe a win.
Okay, Terrence?
Blowout. We're winning.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Next, we're going to be talking about the MLB playoffs and what happened in both Game 7s. Join us here. Welcome back. We are about to discuss the NLCS, ALCS Game 7 victories for the teams that won. And unfortunately, the NLCS loss for the Braves, which I didn't see coming. I'm joined today by Sebastian and George. George, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. Dodgers win. Game 7, the Astros lose. The Braves lose. Look, it's going to be a fun series. I am so thankful that the Dodgers won, Braves lost. I know we were having this back and forth, you know. It really, honestly, the series changed after the 11-run inning. Most innings ever scored in a postseason series. What happened to that Braves pitching? you know? It's only, not like what I said what was going to happen where the Dodgers lineup was just going to be too much. And then the Braves ruined it themselves. They couldn't figure out how to base run. Game 7, you've already scored a run, man on second and third, nobody out. And ball gets hit to third, you throw home really quick. I don't know why he was running on the crack of the bat as you have 2 more outs just to even just get a sac fly. Base running errors, 2 outs, and the inning's over. And Cody Bellinger, and he hits a home run, series is over. It was, honestly, the Braves lost that series.
Sebastian, you want to pile on it while he's on it?
Yeah, honestly, I defended the Braves pitching too. I thought they did good, but as I also mentioned before, this Dodgers lineup is just too good to keep down for long. We saw Corey Seager just explode throughout the whole series, 5 home runs and 11 RBIs. So it was just the Dodgers just came back and won it.
Yeah, it was definitely, as a fan of the Braves, very difficult to watch, especially the Game 6 and Game 7. But you got to give credit where credit is due. Mookie Betts came in, and his bat wasn't singing, but his glove was just on fire. But I want to go ahead and just we're done with the Braves talk. Let's talk ALCS, Game 7. The Rays take on Astros. Sebastian, give us a little bit of clue how that kind of shaped up.
Honestly, I'm a bit upset that the Rays had to go to Game 7 to win this series. They had a 3-0 lead, and they let the Astros come back all the way just to give them a chance to win. And it really bothers me because it was really bad management by the Rays to just give up the next 3 games. So, the Rays came out, they hit home runs. Randy Arozarena, obviously showed out. So, at the end of the day, they did whatever it took.
No, you're right. And, you mentioned a couple of the manager issues that went on that kind of gave the Astros a chance. How does that, going forward, kind of affect the series against the Dodgers? Kevin. George, I apologize.
Really, it really depends on how the Rays manage their bullpen. They have a good bullpen, especially with Castillo and a bunch of their other guys. They have a good bullpen. It's how long they let their starters go. You saw so many first inning home runs, especially by Altuve, and Correa had a bunch. The Astros scored early, so it's really when to take out your starters is what Kevin Cashman, the manager for the Rays, there is going to have to be able to on the lookout for, especially since the Dodgers can pile up so many runs one by one. They have probably the best 1-9 lineup in the league, especially with the NL not having a DH this season has really helped them out. Plus, off the bench, you have guys like A.J. Pollock and Jock Peterson and their kid Rios, who hit a home run in Game 3. It's really going to be how you manage your starting pitchers. It's going to be the outcome for the Rays.
Yeah, and again, that was one thing we discussed these last 2 weeks was Robert's ability to manage his bullpen. And I think what he was able to do against the Braves was do exactly that. So I think there's confidence going forward against the AL opponent. But what do you think is going to be the biggest factor for either team in order to go ahead and lock up a World Series? Sebastian.
I feel like it's going to be, offensive production. We saw the Rays, they put up pretty good runs, but to me it feels like they only hit it exclusively from the home run. Out of the 44 runs that out of the 77 runs that they've scored in the previous 2 series, out of the only 77 hits in the previous series, 22 of them were from the home run, which is over 28%. So my biggest question about the Rays is whether they can produce without the home run. Because we saw the Dodgers, what they did against the Padres even, where they were able to put up runs just from hitting, without the home run. So the lack of offensive productivity from the Rays is what really concerns me about this series.
Look, what really concerns me is the Dodgers' relief system. Now, they did okay against the Braves, but we saw even in Game 1, it's tied 1-1 in the 9th. They let up a bunch of runs. Kenley Jansen isn't what he once was. They really have to see what they have in their bullpen. I think their starting pitchers are good. You have Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, who's starting Game 1. I want to see what he can do in the World Series, although he has a lack of postseason experience, or not productivity. I want to see what they do with their bullpen, and I want to see the Dodgers explode offensively because I think they can.
Well, again, this was probably a really tough week for me with the Cowboys and the Braves losing, but I want to thank you both for joining us and doing this again. Next up, we will be talking the Velichenko and Loma fight. Join us next. Thank you for joining us. In our last segment, we were here to discuss the Vasily Lomachenko and the Teofimo Lopez fight, which, if anyone is asking, it's probably the biggest boxing night since COVID has kind of taken over. And I am joined by the very talented Courtney Gelder and Zachary Axtell. How are you guys doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, so how did you guys feel about the fight? It went the full 12 rounds. I'm going to go with you, Zach, real quick. Do you think the fight was called correctly?
I do think the fight was called correctly. I think Lopez really showed. A lot of people were predicting if he won, it was going to be in a knockout, and he went all 12 rounds. So congrats to him. I think he did win. He came out strong. Loma was kind of waiting back, doing his whole waiting to see what the person's going to do. He waited way too long, and Lopez definitely took advantage of it. And, it was close in the 12th round, but Lopez totally showed why he should have won that, or why he did win that fight in the 12th round.
Courtney, do you agree? Was the fight called correctly?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. Although we know that Lopez took like the first 6 or 7 rounds easily, and Loma came in and put up a really, really good and close fight. But I think the call was correct. Loma put himself in a big hole, like Zach said. And I think that he was trying to, his own game plan kind of put him in a bigger hole and shot himself in the foot by trying to see what the Lopez's game plan was, but it didn't work out for him.
Yeah, Lomachenko is typically someone who starts off slow. He takes a couple round or two to download the information before he goes ahead and steps out there, starts taking his angles. So it was definitely crazy to see him take 8 rounds nearly to start downloading and processing what happened. I know the year layoff may have kind of hindered that. I myself had the fight 6-6, so it was definitely a shock to see it go so heavily in Lopez, but I think he absolutely did enough, like you both said, to take it to Loma and secure the victory. Now, we've already talked a little bit about the judging, so does anyone want to talk about the 11-1 judge card? I know we all say Lopez won, but how crazy is that card to y'all?
I think it's real crazy. Like I said earlier, Loma came in and maybe like the 8, 9, 10, and 11 round, I'd say he probably had that to his advantage. The 12th round probably went to Lopez, but 11-1 is probably insane. I'm not really sure what they saw. And in those last rounds, you could see that Lopez was kind of slow, and he was having to he didn't have the chance to think about what his next move was. So that's where Loma came in with those combinations that really hurt him, and Lopez wasn't able to land his shots like he was in the first rounds. So I'm not really sure what they saw.
Yeah, that was completely insane. I had it 7-5. You could maybe go 8-4, but 11-1, that's crazy. I think this fight kind of proves why there should be more judges in boxing. I don't know why we still have 3 judges. You could do equally the same and have 5. And so I think this fight, in fights similar to this, could prove to have 5 judges in the future.
Yeah, I think judging in boxing has traditionally been a hit or miss type thing, and you have to say, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That judge was drunk. There's no way around it. But one thing I think it would be a mishap to not go ahead and bring up is Edward Berlanga. He came in with 14 straight first-round knockouts and saw an opponent who had never been knocked down even, and delivered a first-round KO. How impressed were you with his performance, Zach?
Oh, that was insane. It was amazing. He just came out and he hit him so many times. The guy looked like he did not know what was going on. Like, it was like a hyena going straight for like a zebra or something. He was deadly. It was awesome. It was fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, going off of what Zach said, I think that he just didn't really want to be in the ring with him, and maybe he was a little bit overwhelmed and a little bit too into his head, and he used that to his advantage, and those power punches really hurt him.
No, you could tell there's a couple times where his opponent just looked dazed. His eyes are just huge, was not aware of what was coming. And again, he secured his 15th first round KO in 79 seconds. They had so much time in the fight that they replayed the fight just so everyone could go ahead and make sure they didn't miss anything. Now, where do you think he goes as far as maybe not necessarily a next opponent, but do you see him kind of taking over that super middleweight division? Courtney?
I think he will, but I think that the key thing for him if you kind of pay attention to what happened after he won that fight, is that he ended up having to do push-ups, which is one thing that he does when he makes mistakes. So even though he had that knockout, his trainer forced him to do those push-ups because he wasn't working on those combinations that made him last in more rounds. So I think that that's going to be his focus, and that's going to make him succeed more. People want to see what else he can do besides these knockouts, but he has success. That's no doubt about that.
I completely agree with that. I think his big thing is going to be fights that go into later rounds. How's he going to be able to handle it there? Because he's not going to be able to knock everybody out. So I think him being able to handle rounds later on, it should be interesting to see how he goes from there.
No, you're absolutely right. I think it's going to be fun to watch his progression. See if there's a fighter out there that can make sure he extends past the first round, which at this point, 14 or 15-0, nobody's been able to stop the young man. So it's been great to see. One thing, you've seen him on the social media market. He's out there with Snoop Dogg doing all this thing. I think he's about to be one of boxing's biggest name. He announced after he was won, I'm here, I'm a monster. And I don't think anyone here can doubt that. I do want to touch back a little bit on the Loma and Lopez fight. Just again, is there something in there that maybe you saw enough that Loma deserved a rematch? Courtney?
No, I don't think so. I think that, like I said earlier, his game plan just did not work. He was powerful enough in the later rounds and smart enough, but it just wasn't enough. It was 12 rounds. He put himself in a deeper hole, and that was it's unfortunate, but it was his own fault.
I don't think there should be a rematch. However, I do think there will be a rematch because that seems to be the trend in boxing. So I don't necessarily agree that it should happen, but I think it will happen.
Yeah, if boxing is any indication, we're about to have a 5 rematch series. It's just what boxing does. But I hope Loma is able to fight himself back and see Lopez again in the future. Again, I want to thank you guys for joining us this week. And I cannot wait to see you next week here, this same time on Tuesday. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week.